This is a 1929 Duesenberg Chassis. When you bought a high upscale car like the Duesenberg, you pretty much bought the chassis and then you would bring it to your bodybuilder and they would build the kind of body you wanted. They built plenty of factory cars, but a lot of times people would just order the chassis and then they'd go to one of the many bodybuilders, LeBaron or any of those people, and design the kind of body they wanted. This particular car, at one time, this is a long wheelbase Duesenberg. It had a big limousine body on it, and the body got lost somewhere, and then this went to a museum. I bought it from the museum and got it running. I drive it on the street just as it is. It's a lot of fun. You know, when you lose a 2,000-pound body, imagine how much faster you can go when you're not carrying an extra ton of weight around. And of course, this is the famous Duesenberg engine, approximately 421 cubic inch, twin cam, 4-valve, very advanced engine, the fastest American engine right up until the Chrysler Letta cars of the 50s rather. This was a car that had 265 horsepower when the biggest car prior to that was maybe 160 horsepower. So it was a fast, high performance luxury car. Well, you can just kind of look around. I think it's one of the prettiest motors there is. This has, a lot of times people think because they see the outside exhaust, it means it has a supercharger. Although the superchargers did have this, that was also an option. This is a normally aspirated car, carbureted car. Aluminum firewall. I mean, it's a pretty, it's such a pretty chassis, I hate to put a body on it. I just like driving it the way it is. When you bought a Duesenberg chassis, it usually came with a spare wheel. You had a complete dashboard. You had your speedometer, your tachometer, your speedometer, your tripometer, very expensive clock, brake. This shows you how much. See, hydraulic brakes are fairly new, so when you, this is to show you how many pounds that you were applying when you pressed on the brake. Had an altimeter. There's no reason to have an altimeter. It's just that you got to remember, 1929, Lindbergh had just flown the ocean. Everybody loved aircraft stuff. So by putting an altimeter in their car, it made it kind of cool, you know. Much like when you buy the modern Porsche, it's got the stopwatch built into the dashboard. It's just one of those accessories that said luxury and speed. What else can I show you? These 4 lights are kind of interesting. These are hooked up. One light comes on when it's time to change the oil. One light comes on when it's time to lube the chassis. Another light comes on when it's time to check the battery. And it's not done by computer, obviously. It's done right over here. You have a series of gears, much like you'd have in a clock to set an alarm clock. And what it does is every, I think it's 1,500 miles, it tells you to check the water in the battery. Every 750 miles, the light comes on to change the oil. Every 80 miles, it comes on to tell you it's automatically lubing the chassis. It's pretty sophisticated. This is an extra fuel pump right there, although it has an electric fuel pump. Your carburetor, obviously. Intake manifold. A lot of aluminum. All Duesenberg engines are apple green. That was the color they came in when they were built by Lycoming, apple green. Very expensive engine to manufacture. Even today, you couldn't. We're trying to make an extra head for one of these. I spoke to a guy that's doing one, and he's into $300,000 casting already, and it's still not finished. So you can see it was a real piece of craftsmanship in its day. And although you can clone cars like Hemi Cudas and Shelby Mustangs just by buying the engine and things, you can't really clone a Duesenberg because these parts are pretty hard to come by. Let's take it for a spin. You always want to have seatbelts, even if you have no body, no windshields. Hope she starts. Hop in. is how they were tested at the factory. Every chassis was driven out and driven around the Indianapolis 500 a bunch of laps to make sure everything was good. But they take the chassis out like that, drive it around, test it, take it to 100 miles an hour, then bring it back in and put a body on it. Let's go put a body on it. As you can see, Duesenbergs are not as quiet as Packards or Cadillacs, but that's okay, they're a lot faster. That's kind of the way they did it. Take the chassis, drive it out, test it, see how it goes, bring it back, put a body on it.